If you told me a year ago that I'd end up in the arms of the Alpha, the same man who once vowed to see me banished from the pack, I would have laughed in your face. Or maybe I would have run. Because the truth is, I spent most of my life running from him, from his anger, from the way his eyes burned with a fury that could turn the bravest wolf to stone. But fate, as I learned, has a twisted sense of humor. And sometimes the person you fear most is the one who holds the key to your freedom and your heart. It started, as most disasters do, with a single reckless choice. The night was thick with fog, the moon a pale ghost behind the clouds. I crept through the forest, my heart pounding, every sense on high alert. I wasn't supposed to be out after dark, not with tensions running high between the rival packs. But I'd never been good at following rules, especially not the ones that made no sense. And tonight I had a mission. My brother, always the troublemaker, had gone missing after a skirmish near the border. The elders said to wait, to trust the Alpha's patrols, but I knew better. If I didn't find him, no one would. So I slipped away, silent as a shadow, my only weapon a small dagger and the stubbornness that had gotten me into trouble more times than I could count. The forest was alive with danger. Every snap of a twig, every rustle of leaves, set my nerves on edge. I moved quickly, following the faint scent of my brother's trail, praying I wasn't too late. The deeper I went, the more the trees seemed to close in, their branches clawing at my clothes, their roots threatening to trip me. I found him at the edge of a clearing, bloodied but alive, his eyes wide with fear. Relief flooded me so sharp it made me dizzy. I knelt beside him, checking his wounds, whispering reassurances I wasn't sure I believed. "We have to go," I said, helping him to his feet. "Can you walk?" He nodded, gritting his teeth against the pain. We moved together, slow and unsteady, every step a battle. I was so focused on getting him home that I didn't hear the footsteps behind us until it was too late. A low growl rumbled through the darkness, freezing me in place. I turned, my heart leaping into my throat. He stood there, tall and imposing, his eyes glowing gold in the moonlight. "The Alpha. Cade." He looked at me like I was the last person he wanted to see. "What are you doing here, Rowan?" His voice was cold, sharp as a blade. I straightened, refusing to show fear. "I came for my brother. He was hurt. I couldn't just leave him." Cade's gaze flicked to my brother, then back to me. "You disobeyed a direct order. You put yourself and the pack at risk." Anger flared in my chest. "If I hadn't come, he'd be dead. Your patrols didn't find him." "I did." For a moment I thought he might explode. His jaw clenched, his fists tightening at his sides. But then something shifted in his eyes, a flicker of something I couldn't name. "Get him home," he said, his voice low. "We'll talk about this later." I didn't wait for him to change his mind. I half-carried my brother back through the forest, my mind racing with fear and fury. I knew what was coming. The Alpha didn't tolerate disobedience, especially not from me. I was the pack's problem child, the one who never fit, the one who always pushed too far. When we reached the village, the healers took my brother, their faces tight with worry. I stood outside the infirmary, the night air cold against my skin, waiting for the inevitable. Cade found me there, his presence a storm I could feel before I saw him. He didn't speak at first, just stared at me, his eyes unreadable. "You could have been killed," he said finally, his voice softer than I expected. I met his gaze, refusing to back down. "So could he." I did what I had to do. He shook his head, frustration etched into every line of his face. "You never listen. You never think about the consequences." I bristled, the old anger rising. "Maybe if you listened, you'd understand why I do what I do." His eyes narrowed, a challenge in his stare. "You think you know better than everyone else?" "No," I said, my voice steady. "I just know what it's like to be left behind." For a moment, the world seemed to hold its breath. Then Cade stepped closer, his voice barely more than a whisper. "You're reckless, Rowan. And one day it's going to get you killed." I looked up at him, my heart pounding. "Maybe. But at least I'll go down fighting." He stared at me for a long moment, something shifting in his expression. Then he turned and walked away, leaving me alone in the darkness. That was the night everything changed. The night I stopped running from the Alpha's wrath and started facing it head-on. I didn't know it then, but that was also the night I took the first step towards stealing his heart. Because sometimes the line between enemy and lover is thinner than you think. And sometimes the person you fear most is the one who sees you most clearly. The days after that night were a blur of tension and whispered rumors. I could feel the pack's eyes on me wherever I went, some filled with admiration, others with suspicion, and a few with open resentment. I was used to being the outcast, the one who broke the rules, but this was different. This time I defied the Alpha himself. And everyone knew it. Cade kept his distance, but his presence was everywhere. I saw him in the training yard, barking orders at the warriors, his voice carrying across the fields. I saw him in the council hall, his expression unreadable as the elders debated the best way to protect the pack. I saw him in my dreams, his golden eyes burning with anger and something else, something I didn't dare name. I tried to keep busy, throwing myself into chores and training, anything to keep my mind off the storm I'd unleashed. But it was impossible to ignore the tension that simmered beneath the surface. The pack was on edge, the threat from the rival wolves growing with each passing day. Patrols were doubled, curfews enforced, and every night, the howls from the border seemed to creep closer. One afternoon, as I was hauling water from the well, I heard footsteps behind me. I turned, expecting to see one of the other girls, but instead found myself face to face with Cade. He didn't say a word, just took the bucket from my hands and set it aside. His eyes were hard, his jaw set. "Come with me," he said, his tone leaving no room for argument. I followed him through the village, my heart pounding. He led me to the edge of the forest, where the trees grew thick and the shadows. He leaned in, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "You're the most interesting person in this room right now. Trust me." Tessa felt her cheeks flush. She looked away, suddenly shy. The ballroom seemed less intimidating with Elliot by her side, the crowd's judgment fading into the background. A waiter appeared, offering champagne. Elliot took 2 glasses, handing one to Tessa. "To new beginnings," he said, raising his glass. She clinked hers against his, the crystal ringing softly. "To pretending," she replied, her smile growing. They sipped their drinks, the bubbles tickling Tessa's nose. She glanced around, noticing the way people watched them, curious, envious, some even whispering behind their hands. For once she didn't care. She felt seen not as an outsider but as someone who belonged. "So," Elliot said, turning to face her, "how do you know Mark?" Tessa hesitated, the old pain flickering in her eyes. "We dated for a while. He was charming at first. But he always made me feel like I was never enough. Like I was lucky just to be in the same room." Elliot's expression darkened, his jaw tightening. "He's an idiot." She laughed, the sound tinged with relief. "Thank you. I wish I'd realized that sooner." He squeezed her hand, his touch gentle. "You deserve better. Much better." They drifted toward the edge of the dance floor, the music swelling around them. Elliot held out his hand, a playful glint in his eyes. "Dance with me?" Tessa hesitated, nerves fluttering in her stomach. "I'm not very good." He smiled, his confidence infectious. "Neither am I. But I promise not to step on your toes." She laughed, letting him lead her onto the floor. The band played a slow, jazzy tune, the kind that made the world feel softer, more forgiving. Elliot's hand found the small of her back, his other hand holding hers. They moved together, awkward at first, then finding a rhythm that felt natural, easy. As they danced, Tessa felt the tension melt away. She let herself be carried by the music, by the warmth of Elliot's gaze, by the possibility that maybe, just maybe, this night could be more than just pretending. "So, what do you do when you're not rescuing damsels in distress?" she asked, her voice light. Elliot chuckled. "I run a few companies. Mostly investments, real estate, a little tech. It sounds more glamorous than it is." She raised an eyebrow, teasing. "So you're saying you're not secretly a superhero?" He grinned. "Only on weekends." They laughed, the sound blending with the music. Tessa felt a spark of something she hadn't felt in a long time, hope. The song ended, but Elliot didn't let go. He guided her off the dance floor, finding a quiet corner near the windows. The city stretched out below them, lights twinkling like stars. "Do you want to get some air?" he asked. She nodded, grateful for the excuse to escape the crowd. They slipped out onto the balcony, the cool night air a welcome relief. Tessa leaned against the railing, looking out over the city. "It's beautiful," she murmured. Elliot joined her, his shoulder brushing hers. "It is. But it's even better with good company." She smiled, her nerves settling. For the first time all night she felt like herself. They stood in comfortable silence, the city humming below. Tessa glanced at Elliot, her curiosity growing. Why did you say yes when I asked you to pretend? He considered, his gaze thoughtful. I saw you with Mark. I could tell you needed an out. I know what it's like to feel out of place. People assume money makes everything easy, but it doesn't. Sometimes it just makes the loneliness quieter. Tessa looked at him, surprised by his honesty. I never would have guessed. He shrugged, a small smile on his lips. We all have our masks, don't we? She nodded, understanding. Maybe tonight we can take them off. Just for a little while. Elliot's eyes softened. I'd like that. They stood together, the city lights reflecting in the glass, and for the first time, Tessa felt like she was exactly where she was meant to be. The night deepened, and the city's glow seemed to wrap the balcony in a gentle hush. Tessa and Elliot lingered, the hum of the gala fading behind them, replaced by the distant sounds of traffic and the occasional burst of laughter from inside. For a while neither spoke. It was the kind of silence that felt full, not empty, a space where something new could grow. Tessa glanced at Elliot, studying the way the city lights played across his features. He looked different out here, away from the crowd, softer, more real. She wondered what it would be like to know him outside of this moment, to see the man behind the headlines and the fortune. Do you ever wish you could just disappear for a while? She asked, her voice quiet. Elliot smiled, a little wistful. All the time. Sometimes I think about buying a cabin in the woods, turning off my phone, and just being nobody for a while. She laughed, the sound surprising them both. I'd probably last a day before I missed the city. But I get it. Sometimes I wish I could be invisible just to see what it feels like. He looked at her, his gaze steady. You don't seem invisible to me. Tessa felt her cheeks warm. She looked away, focusing on the skyline. Thank you. I think I needed to hear that. Elliot leaned against the railing, his arm close to hers. So, what would you do if you could be anyone, anywhere for a day? She thought for a moment, letting the question settle. I'd go to Paris. I'd spend the whole day in museums, sketching, writing, just soaking it all in. And then I'd find a tiny cafe and order something I can't pronounce. And for the first time, I let myself hope that maybe, just maybe, we could be more than enemies. Maybe we could be something extraordinary. The next few days felt like walking a tightrope strung high above the pack. Every step I took was watched, every word I spoke weighed and measured. The elder's warning echoed in my mind, but I refused to let it break me. I'd survived worse than their suspicion. I'd survived the Alpha's wrath, and somehow I'd survived his kiss. Cade and I kept our distance in public, but the air between us was charged. Every glance, every accidental brush of hands, every shared smile felt like a secret. At night, I lay awake replaying our conversations, the way his voice softened when he spoke to me, the way his eyes lingered just a little too long. I wondered if he was thinking of me too. The pack was restless. The rival wolves had retreated, but everyone knew it was only a matter of time before they struck again. Patrols were doubled, and the warriors trained harder than ever. I joined them, pushing myself to the limit, determined to prove I belonged. Cade watched from the sidelines, his gaze unreadable, but I could feel his pride every time I landed a blow or outmaneuvered a larger opponent. One afternoon, as I was sparring with one of the younger warriors, Cade called me over. His tone was all business, but his eyes told a different story. Walk with me, he said, leading me away from the training yard. We wandered through the forest, the sunlight filtering through the leaves, dappling the ground in gold and green. For a while, we walked in silence, the only sound the crunch of leaves beneath our boots. Finally, Cade spoke. You're stronger than you think, Rowan. The pack sees it even if they won't admit it. I glanced at him, surprised by the compliment. I just do what needs to be done. He smiled, a rare, genuine thing. That's what makes you dangerous. I laughed, the sound light and free. You say that like it's a bad thing. He stopped, turning to face me. It's not. It's what drew me to you in the first place. My breath caught, the world narrowing to just the two of us. I thought you hated me. He shook his head, his expression serious. I never hated you. I was afraid of what you made me feel. You challenged me, pushed me, made me question everything I thought I knew. I looked down, my cheeks burning. I never meant to make things harder for you. He reached out, lifting my chin so I had to meet his gaze. You made me better. Stronger. You made me see that there's more to being alpha than power and control. For a moment I let myself believe it could be that simple. That we could be more than enemies, more than rivals. That we could be partners. But the world had other plans. A howl split the air, sharp and urgent. Cade's expression hardened, all softness gone. That's the border. Come on. We ran through the trees, our bodies moving in perfect sync. When we reached the edge of the territory we found chaos. The rival pack had returned, their warriors pouring over the border, teeth bared, eyes wild. Cade shifted in a blur of motion, his wolf form massive and powerful. I followed, the change coming easier than ever before. Together we launched ourselves into the fray, fighting side by side, our movements a dance of violence and grace. The battle was fierce, but the pack held strong. Cade's presence was a beacon, his commands clear and decisive. I fought with everything I had, my mind focused, my heart steady. For the first time I felt truly part of something bigger than myself. When the dust settled, the rival wolves had been driven back once more. The pack gathered, battered but victorious, their howls echoing through the night. Cade shifted back, his body bruised but unbowed. He found me in the crowd, his eyes searching mine. "You were incredible," he said, his voice rough with emotion. I smiled, exhaustion and relief mingling in my chest. "So were you." He reached for my hand, his grip strong and sure. "We make a good team." I squeezed his hand, hope blooming inside me. "The best." The pack watched us, their expressions a mix of surprise and acceptance. For the first time I saw respect in their eyes, not just for Cade but for me. That night, as the pack celebrated, Cade pulled me aside, leading me to a quiet spot beneath the stars. "I want you by my side, Rowan," he said, his voice soft but fierce. "Not just as a warrior but as my equal. My partner." My heart soared, the words I'd longed to hear finally spoken aloud. "I want that too." He smiled, pulling me into his arms. Then it settled. No more hiding. No more pretending. We stood together beneath the moon, the future stretching out before us, uncertain but full of promise. For the first time I wasn't afraid. I wasn't running. I was exactly where I was meant to be. The days that followed felt like waking up in a new world. The pack's mood shifted, the tension that had once crackled in the air now replaced by a cautious optimism. I could feel it everywhere, in the way the elders nodded at me in passing, in the laughter of the children as they played in the sun, in the way the warriors trained with renewed purpose. For the first time I felt like I belonged, not just because I'd fought for my place, but because I'd earned it. Cade and I no longer hid our connection. We walked together through the village, side by side, our hands brushing, our smiles lingering. Some of the pack still watched us with wary eyes, but most seemed relieved, as if a storm had finally passed. I saw hope in their faces, a belief that maybe, just maybe, things could be different. But peace, I was learning, is never simple. The rival pack had been driven back, but they were not defeated. Scouts reported seeing their warriors lurking at the borders, their eyes hungry, their intentions clear. The threat was far from over. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky in shades of fire, Cade called a meeting of the pack. We gathered in the clearing at the heart of the village, the air thick with anticipation. Cade stood before us, his presence commanding. "We have fought hard to protect our home," he began, his voice strong. "But the danger is not gone. The rival pack will return, and when they do, we must be ready." He looked at me, his gaze steady. "Rowan will lead the warriors in training. She has proven herself time and again. She is not just my partner, she is your protector." A murmur ran through the crowd, some surprised. The next morning I gathered the warriors in the training yard. I pushed them hard, testing their limits, teaching them everything I knew about fighting, about surviving. Some resisted at first, and used to taking orders from me, but I won them over with sweat and determination. By the end of the week we moved as one, strong, united, ready for whatever came next. Cade watched from the sidelines, pride shining in his eyes. At night we talked for hours, sharing our hopes and fears, our dreams for the future. He told me stories of his childhood, of the burden of leadership, of the loneliness that came with being alpha. I told him of my own struggles, of the pain of being an outsider, of the longing to belong. We found comfort in each other, a sense of peace I'd never known. But even as our bond deepened, the threat from the rival pack loomed ever larger. One night as I lay in Cade's arms, a howl split the air, a warning sharp and urgent. We sprang from the bed, adrenaline surging. The pack was already gathering, warriors shifting into wolf form, eyes glowing in the darkness. Cade and I led them to the border, the forest alive with tension. The rival pack was waiting, their alpha at the front, his eyes cold and calculating. "This ends tonight," he called, his voice echoing through the trees. Cade stepped forward, his presence a wall of strength. "We will not back down. This is our home. We will defend it." The rival alpha sneered. "You're weak. You let a woman lead your warriors. You've forgotten what it means to be strong." I stepped forward, my voice clear and unwavering. "Strength isn't about who leads. It's about who stands together. And we stand as one." A growl rippled through the rival pack, but ours stood firm, united. The battle that followed was fierce and brutal. Wolves clashed in a blur of fur and fangs, the air thick with the scent of blood and fear. I fought at Cade's side, our movements in perfect sync, our trust in each other absolute. When the dust settled, the rival pack was broken, their alpha defeated. Our pack stood victorious, battered but unbowed. Cade shifted back, his body bruised but his spirit unbroken. He found me in the aftermath, his eyes shining with pride and relief. "You saved us," he whispered, pulling me into his arms. I held him close, my heart full. We saved each other. The pack gathered around us, their howls rising to the sky, a song of victory, of hope, of a new beginning. For the first time I felt truly at home. Not just as a warrior, not just as Cade's partner, but as a leader, as someone who had earned her place. And as the moon rose high above the trees, I knew that whatever came next, we would face it together. The days after our victory were filled with a kind of quiet celebration. The pack moved with a new confidence, their heads held high, their laughter ringing through the village. The children played without fear, the elders smiled more easily, and the warriors, my warriors, trained with a sense of purpose I'd never seen before. The scars of battle were still visible, but they were badges of honor now, reminders of what we'd survived together. Cade and I became inseparable. We worked side by side, making decisions for the pack, listening to concerns, planning for the future. At night, we walked beneath the stars, talking about everything and nothing, our hands always finding each other in the darkness. The bond between us grew stronger with every passing day, a steady flame that warmed even the coldest nights. But peace, I knew, was never permanent. There were always new challenges, new threats lurking just beyond the horizon. One afternoon, as I was helping repair a damaged fence at the edge of the village, a messenger arrived, breathless, eyes wide with fear. "There's trouble at the southern border," he gasped. "A group of rogues. They're demanding to see the Alpha." Cade and I exchanged a glance, the easy comfort of the day evaporating in an instant. We gathered a small group of warriors and set out at once, moving quickly through the forest. When we reached the border, we found a ragged group of wolves, outsiders, their fur matted, their eyes desperate. At their center stood a woman, her posture proud despite the exhaustion etched into her face. Cade stepped forward, his voice calm but commanding. "You're trespassing on our land. State your business." The woman met his gaze, her chin lifted. "We seek sanctuary. Our pack was destroyed. We have nowhere else to go." A murmur ran through our group. Rogues were rarely trusted, often exiles, troublemakers, or worse. But there was something in the woman's eyes that made me pause. A familiar defiance, a refusal to give up. Cade hesitated, glancing at me. I saw the question in his eyes. Could we trust them? Should we risk it? I stepped forward, my voice steady. "If you mean us no harm, you are welcome here. But you must follow our rules. You must become part of our pack." The woman nodded, relief flooding her features. "We will. Thank you." We led the rogues back to the village, the pack watching with a mixture of curiosity and suspicion. Some grumbled, remembering old wounds, but most seemed willing to give the newcomers a chance. That night, Cade and I sat by the fire, the flames casting flickering shadows on the walls. "You did the right thing," he said quietly. I shrugged, uncertainty gnawing at me. "I hope so. It's not easy asking the pack to trust strangers." He reached for my hand, his grip reassuring. "You have good instincts, Rowan. You see people for who they are, not just what they've done." I smiled, the tension easing. "I learned from the best." He laughed, the sound warm and familiar. "You're impossible." I grinned, leaning into him. You love it. He pulled me close, his lips brushing my forehead. I do. The days that followed were a test of patience and trust. The newcomers struggled to adapt, their old habits clashing with our ways. There were arguments, misunderstandings, even a few fights. But slowly, with time and effort, the lines between us began to blur. I spent hours with the new arrivals, teaching them our customs, listening to their stories, helping them find their place. Some resisted, clinging to the past, but most were grateful for the chance to start over. One evening, as I walked through the village, I found the woman who had led the rogues sitting alone by the river. I joined her, the silence between us comfortable. "Thank you," she said after a while, her voice soft, "for giving us a chance." I nodded, understanding the weight of her words. Everyone deserves a second chance. I know what it's like to be an outsider. She smiled, a hint of sadness in her eyes. "It's not easy starting over." "No," I agreed. "But it's worth it." We sat together, watching the water flow past, the world quiet and still. As the days turned to weeks, the newcomers became part of the pack. The children played together, the warriors. Cade and I stood at the heart of it all, partners in every sense of the word. We faced each challenge together, our trust in each other unshakable. But even as the pack grew stronger, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was coming. A new threat, a new test. The world was changing and we would have to change with it. One night, as I lay in Cade's arms, I whispered my fears into the darkness. What if we're not ready? What if we can't protect them? He held me close, his voice steady. We'll face whatever comes. Together. And in that moment I believed him. Summer faded into autumn, and the forest blazed with color, gold, crimson, and amber leaves swirling in the wind. The pack thrived, stronger and more united than I'd ever seen. The newcomers had found their place among us, their children laughing with ours, their warriors standing shoulder to shoulder in the training yard. The old wounds between us and the rogues began to heal, replaced by a cautious but growing trust. Cade and I worked tirelessly, balancing the needs of the pack with the challenges of leadership. There were disputes to settle, supplies to gather, and always, the threat of danger lurking at the edges of our territory. But we faced it all together, our partnership a steady anchor in the shifting tides of pack life. One crisp morning as I walked through the village, I heard raised voices near the council hall. I hurried over, finding a group of elders arguing with some of the newcomers. The tension was thick, old resentment simmering just beneath the surface. "We welcomed you into our home," one elder snapped, his eyes narrowed. "But you must respect our ways." The rogue leader, the woman I'd come to know as Mara, stood her ground. "We do respect your ways. But we have our own traditions too. Isn't there room for both?" I stepped between them, my voice calm but firm. "We are one pack now. That means compromise. We can honor both traditions, yours and ours. But we must do it together." The elders grumbled, but Mara nodded, her eyes grateful. "Thank you, Rowan." After the crowd dispersed, Cade found me by the well, his expression thoughtful. "You handled that well," he said, pride in his voice. I shrugged, brushing a stray leaf from my hair. "It's not easy blending two worlds. But it's worth it." He smiled, pulling me close. "You're the heart of this pack, Rowan. You always have been." I leaned into him, warmth spreading through me. "Not just me. You too. We're stronger together." He kissed my forehead, his touch gentle. "Always." As autumn deepened, the nights grew colder, and the first hints of winter crept into the air. The pack prepared for the long months ahead, gathering food, repairing shelters, and strengthening the bonds that held us together. One evening, as the sun set in a blaze of orange and purple, Cade called a gathering in the clearing. The entire pack assembled, their faces illuminated by the flickering light of torches. Cade stood before them, his presence commanding. "We have faced many challenges this year. We have fought enemies, welcomed strangers, and learned to trust each other. But there is one more thing we must do, something that will bind us together, now and always." He turned to me, his eyes shining. "Rowan, will you stand with me? Not just as my partner, but as my mate." A hush fell over the crowd, every eye fixed on us. My heart pounded, joy and disbelief warring inside me. "Yes," I said, my voice clear and strong. "I will." The pack erupted in cheers, their howls echoing through the night. Cade pulled me into his arms, his lips finding mine in a kiss that was both a promise and a beginning. The mating ceremony was simple but beautiful. We stood before the pack, hands joined, hearts open. The elders blessed our union, the warriors pledged their loyalty, and the children scattered wildflowers at our feet. As the celebration continued long into the night, I found myself standing at the edge of the clearing, watching the pack dance and laugh beneath the stars. Mara joined me, her eyes bright with happiness. "You did it," she said softly. "You brought us together." I smiled, emotion thick in my throat. "We did it. All of us." She squeezed my hand, her grip strong. "You're a good leader, Rowan. The pack is lucky to have you." I looked out at the faces of my family, old and new, and felt a deep sense of peace. For the first time, I truly believed I belonged. Later, as the fire burned low and the pack drifted off to sleep, Cade and I walked together beneath the moonlight. The world was quiet, the only sound the rustle of leaves and the distant call of an owl. He stopped, turning to face me, his eyes full of love. "I never thought I'd find someone who could challenge me, who could make me better. You're my equal, Rowan. My heart. My home." I smiled, tears shining in my eyes. "And you're mine." We stood together beneath the stars, the future stretching out before us, uncertain but full of hope. But even as I basked in the warmth of our love, I knew that life would never be simple. There would always be challenges, always be enemies at the gate. But I also knew that together we could face anything. Because sometimes the greatest love stories are born from the fiercest rivalries. And sometimes the person you once called your enemy becomes the one you can't live without. Winter arrived with a vengeance, blanketing the forest in snow and ice. The world grew quiet, the usual sounds of the village muffled beneath a thick white hush. The pack huddled together for warmth, sharing stories and laughter around the fire, their breath rising in clouds in the cold air. It was a season of survival, of drawing close, of remembering what truly mattered. Cade and I settled into our new life as mates, our bond deepening with every passing day. We shared everything, our hopes, our fears, our dreams for the future. The pack looked to us for guidance, and together we faced each challenge that winter brought. Food was scarce, tempers sometimes flared, but we weathered every storm side by side. One evening, as the wind howled outside and the fire crackled in the hearth, Mara came to us with news. "There's trouble at the northern border," she said. We returned to the village, the pack welcoming us with cheers and grateful smiles. The threat had been dealt with, but the danger was a reminder that peace was always fragile, always hard-won. As the weeks passed, the snow piled higher and the days grew shorter. The pack grew restless, cabin fever setting in as the cold dragged on. I did my best to keep spirits high, organizing games for the children, helping the elders with their chores, listening to the worries of the warriors. Cade and I spent our evenings planning for the future, how to strengthen the pack, how to protect our borders, how to ensure that no one was ever left behind. We dreamed of spring, of new life, of a world where our children could grow up safe and free. One night, as we lay together beneath a pile of furs, Cade traced lazy circles on my arm, his voice soft in the darkness. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked. "All the fights, all the risks you took?" I thought of the battles we'd fought, the scars we carried, the enemies we'd faced. I thought of the girl I'd been, the outcast, the troublemaker, the one who never quite fit. "No," I said, my voice steady. "Every fight, every risk, every mistake, it brought me here. To you. To this pack. To this life." He smiled, pressing a kiss to my forehead. "I'm glad you're as stubborn as you are." I laughed, the sound bright in the quiet room. "You wouldn't have survived me otherwise." He grinned, his eyes full of love. "I wouldn't want to." As winter slowly loosened its grip, the first signs of spring appeared, tiny green shoots pushing through the snow, the distant call of birds returning to the forest. The pack emerged from their shelters, blinking in the pale sunlight, their spirits lifting with the promise of warmer days. We celebrated the end of winter with a feast, the entire pack gathered in the clearing, sharing food and stories and laughter. Mara stood beside me, her eyes shining with pride. "You've changed everything, Rowan," she said quietly. "You and Cade. You gave us hope when we had none." I squeezed her hand, emotion thick in my throat. "We did it together. All of us." As the sun set and the stars appeared, Cade pulled me into his arms, his voice a whisper in my ear. "I love you, Rowan. More than I ever thought possible." I smiled, my heart overflowing. "I love you too. Always. We stood together beneath the stars, the pack gathered around us, the future bright and full of promise. Because in the end, it wasn't just about surviving the Alpha's wrath. It was about finding the courage to love, to trust, to build something new from the ashes of the past. And as the first flowers of spring bloomed in the forest, I knew that our story was only just beginning. Spring arrived in a rush of color and sound. The forest awoke, alive with birdsong and the scent of new growth. The pack shook off the last traces of winter, eager to run beneath the open sky, to feel the sun on their faces and the earth beneath their paws. Life returned to the village in 1,000 small ways, babies born, old wounds healed, laughter echoing through the trees. Cade and I found ourselves busier than ever. There were new alliances to forge, new challenges to face. The rival pack, defeated but not destroyed, sent word of a truce. Their new alpha, a young wolf with wary eyes, asked for a meeting, hoping to end the cycle of bloodshed that had haunted both our packs for generations. We agreed, gathering our council and traveling to the border, where the forest grew thick and wild. The meeting was tense at first, old grudges simmering just beneath the surface. But as we spoke, as we listened, something shifted. The new alpha spoke of loss, of hope, of a desire for peace. Cade and I shared our own story, how enemies could become allies, how trust could be built one step at a time. By the end of the day, a fragile peace had been brokered. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. As we returned home, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The future was uncertain, but for the first time, it felt truly possible. The pack celebrated the truce with a festival. Lanterns hung from the trees, music filled the air, and the scent of roasting meat drifted on the breeze. Children chased each other through the grass, their laughter bright and wild. The elders told stories of old battles and new beginnings, their voices weaving the past and present together. Mara found me by the fire, her eyes shining. "You did it, Rowan. You changed everything." I shook my head, smiling. "We did it. All of us." She hugged me, fierce and quick. "Don't ever forget how far you've come." As the night wore on, Cade pulled me away from the crowd, leading me to the edge of the forest. The moon hung low, silvering the world in its gentle light. He stopped, turning to face me, his eyes full of love and wonder. "Do you remember the first time we met?" he asked, a smile tugging at his lips. I laughed, the memory sharp and sweet. "How could I forget? You were furious. I was terrified. And yet, somehow here we are." He took my hands in his touch warm and steady. I never imagined I'd fall in love with the one person who challenged me at every turn. I grinned, squeezing his fingers. And I never imagined I'd fall for the alpha who once threatened to banish me. He leaned in, his forehead resting against mine. "You saved me, Rowan. You saved this pack. You taught me what it means to lead with my heart, not just my strength." Tears pricked my eyes, but I smiled through them. "You saved me too. You gave me a place to belong. A family. A future." We stood together in the moonlight, the world quiet around us. For a moment, it felt as if time itself had paused, holding its breath as we found our way to each other once more. "I want to spend the rest of my life with you," Cade whispered, his voice trembling with emotion. "Whatever comes, whatever challenges we face, I want you by my side." I nodded, my heart full. "Always." He kissed me then, slow and sweet, a promise written in the language of touch and trust. The world faded away, leaving only the two of us, bound together by everything we'd survived, everything we'd built. As dawn crept over the horizon, painting the sky in shades of gold and rose, we returned to the village, hand in hand. The pack greeted us with smiles and cheers, their faces alight with hope. In the days that followed, life settled into a new rhythm. The truce with the rival pack held, and for the first time in memory there was peace. The newcomers who had once been rogues became leaders in their own right, their voices shaping the future of the pack. The children grew strong and fearless, their laughter a constant reminder of what we'd fought for. Cade and I led together, our partnership a beacon for all who watched. We made mistakes, faced setbacks, but we never gave up. We learned that love was not the absence of conflict, but the willingness to fight for each other, to forgive, to grow. One evening, as the sun set and the world glowed with the promise of summer, I stood at the edge of the village, watching the pack gather for the night. Cade joined me, his arm slipping around my waist. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if things had been different? He asked softly. I shook my head, smiling. No. Every fight, every argument, every moment of doubt, it brought us here. To this life. To this love. He kissed my temple, his voice a whisper in the fading light. Enemies to lovers. Who would have thought? I laughed, the sound bright and free. Only fate. Or maybe just two stubborn wolves who refused to give up. We stood together, watching the stars appear one by one, the future stretching out before us, uncertain but full of hope. Because in the end, it wasn't just about surviving the Alpha's wrath. It was about finding the courage to love, to forgive, to build something new. It was about turning enemies into allies, fear into trust, and rivalry into a love that could weather any storm. And as the night deepened and the pack howled their joy to the moon, I knew that our story was far from over. It was only just beginning.